I stood outside the heavy wooden doors of Briarford Academy's auditorium, clutching an invitation I had bought myself from the school website. The muffled sound of applause leaked through the cracks, and each clap felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. My hands trembled as I reached for the door handle. But before I could touch it, a security guard stepped in front of me. He didn't look at my face. He just shook his head and said 3 words that shattered me. "You can't enter." Behind him, through the small window in the door, I saw my daughter Talia standing in line with the other graduates. Her cap sat perfectly on her dark hair, and she wore the blue gown I had dreamed of seeing her in for years. But when her eyes met mine through that window, she looked away. She turned her back on me. That was when I heard his voice. Corvin Hale, her stepfather, appeared beside the guard with his arms crossed and a smug smile on his face. "I've done more for her than you ever did," he said coldly. Those words hung in the air like poison. The security guard put his hand on my shoulder, gently but firmly. "Ma'am, please leave the premises," he said. My throat closed up. I wanted to scream, to cry, to beg. But I just stood there, frozen, as the world moved around me like I didn't exist. Inside the auditorium, the principal's voice boomed over the speakers, announcing the next graduate. I heard laughter, cheers, the rustle of programs. I heard everything except my daughter's voice. Corvin leaned in closer, his breath hot against my ear. "You're embarrassing yourself, Celine," he whispered. "And you're embarrassing her." My vision blurred with tears, but I blinked them back. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. Not here. Not now. Then I heard it, clear as a bell, echoing through the auditorium walls. Talia Armitage. My daughter's name. The name I gave her. The name I whispered to her when she was born, when I rocked her to sleep, when I promised her I would always be there. Something inside me snapped. Not in anger. In resolve. I pushed past the guard and walked straight through those doors. The auditorium went silent. Every head turned toward me as my shoes clicked against the polished floor. I walked down the center aisle, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. Parents stared. Students whispered. Teachers stood up from their seats, unsure of what to do. But I didn't stop. I kept my eyes locked on Talia, who stood frozen on the stage, her diploma halfway extended toward her. The principal's hand hung in midair. Corvin's voice exploded from the back of the room. "You don't belong here," he shouted. The entire auditorium gasped. I stopped walking, standing in the middle of the aisle like I was on trial. My legs shook, but I forced myself to speak. "I have every right to see my daughter graduate," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. I am her mother. Talia's face twisted in confusion, then pain. She gripped her diploma tightly and looked down at me. Her lips trembled. Then she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Mom, why are you doing this?" Before I could answer, Corvin was already making his way down the aisle toward me. He moved like a predator, confident and calculated. When he reached me, he turned to face the crowd, not me. His voice was smooth, practiced, like he had rehearsed this moment. "I'm sorry everyone has to witness this," he said, shaking his head sadly. "Celine abandoned Talia years ago. She hasn't been part of her life. I'm the one who raised her, supported her, paid for everything." Gasps rippled through the audience. Parents exchanged glances. I felt the weight of their judgment pressing down on me. "That's not true," I said, but my voice came out weak, shaky. "No one hurt me." Corvin continued, his hand on his chest like he was the victim. "I've tried to protect Talia from this kind of drama. That's why I didn't invite her." The words hit me like a slap. He didn't invite me. He made that choice. A teacher I didn't recognize approached me from the side. She was older, with kind eyes and gray streaks in her hair. "Ma'am, please come with me," she said gently. I had no choice. As she escorted me out, she slipped something into my hand. An envelope. It was addressed to me, but it had already been ripped open. I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at the envelope. My hand shook as I pulled out the letter inside. The handwriting was Talia's. I recognized it immediately, the loopy letters and the way she dotted her eyes with little circles. The date at the top made my stomach drop, from months ago. "Dear Mom," it began. I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for me. I know things have been hard, but I'm so grateful for your support. I can't wait for you to see me graduate. Corvin said he's been sending you updates about the ceremony. I hope you can make it. I miss you. Love, Talia. I read it 3 times, each time feeling more sick. I never received this letter. I never got any updates from Corvin. I had been calling, emailing, begging for information about the graduation for months, and he ignored me every single time. At the bottom of the letter, in smaller handwriting, Talia had added a note. Mom, why aren't you answering Corvin's messages about the ceremony? My blood turned to ice. He told her I wasn't responding. He made her think I didn't care. I waited in the parking lot until the ceremony ended. When I saw Corvin walking toward his car, I stepped out of mine and walked straight toward him. He saw me coming and smirked. Still here, he said, unlocking his car door. You intercepted my mail, I said, holding up the letter. You kept Talia's letters from me. He laughed. Actually laughed. I protected her, he said casually. From your drama. From your instability. It was better for her. My hands clenched into fists. You had no right. I had every right, he said, leaning against his car. I have legal custody rights. You agreed to it, remember? I froze. I never agreed to anything. Corvin reached into his car and pulled out a folder. He flipped it open and handed me a document. My signature was at the bottom, but I had never seen this paper before in my life. That's not my signature, I whispered. He smiled. Prove it. Then he got in his car and drove away, leaving me standing there with a forged document in my hands and a collapsing world around me. The next morning, I returned to Briarford Academy. I needed answers. The teacher who had helped me, Ms. Vale, agreed to meet me in an empty classroom. She closed the door behind us and sat down across from me, her face serious. I need you to understand something, she said. Corvin has been pressuring this school for over a year. He wanted you removed from all parent communication. Why didn't anyone tell me? I asked. She sighed. Because he made it sound like it was for Talia's safety. He said you were unstable, unreliable. He painted a picture of you that made the school believe keeping you out was the right thing to do. My throat tightened. And you believed him? Not me, she said quickly. But others did, including the administration. She pulled out her phone and showed me an email thread. My name was at the top, flagged with a red warning label. Spam. Every email you sent to the school was filtered out, Ms. Vale explained. Someone inside the school marked your address as spam, so no one would see your messages. I stared at the screen, horrified. Who did this? Ms. Vale looked at me with pity. It wasn't me, but I know who it was. She paused. The school administrator, Mr. Renford. I marched into Mr. Renford's office without an appointment. His secretary tried to stop me, but I pushed past her. Renford looked up from his desk, startled. He was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a nervous energy that made him seem younger than he was. Mrs. Armitage, he said, standing quickly. You blocked my emails, I said, slamming my hands on his desk. You kept me out of my daughter's life. His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, I said, my voice shaking. Miss Vale told me everything. Renford's hands trembled as he adjusted his glasses. He glanced at the door like he was thinking about running. Then he sat down heavily and put his face in his hands. He made me do it, he whispered. Who? Corvin. He nodded. He said if I didn't help him, he'd expose something. Something I needed kept secret. What kind of secret? I demanded. Renford looked up at me, tears in his eyes. It doesn't matter. What matters is that he had leverage, and I was too weak to say no. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. Talia's scholarship was filed under Corvin's name, not yours. I left Renford's office feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath me. Talia's scholarship, the one I had helped her apply for, the one I had spent hours editing essays for, gathering documents for, praying for. It was under Corvin's name. That meant the school thought he was the one supporting her. That meant I had been erased. Again, I drove to the school records office and demanded to see Talia's academic file. At first, they refused, but I threatened to call a lawyer And finally, they handed me a thick folder. I flipped through the pages, my hands shaking. Under primary guardian, Corvin's name was listed. Under emergency contact, Corvin's name was listed. Under parental involvement, there was a note in red ink. Mother listed as uninvolved. I felt like I was going to be sick. I flipped to the scholarship application. There, in the supporting parent section, was a letter supposedly written by me. It said, I, Celine Armitage, acknowledge that I have not been actively involved in Talia's academic life and defer all educational decisions to Corvin Hale. I stared at the letter, my vision blurring. I had never written this. I had never even seen it. Someone had forged this. Someone had stolen my voice, my identity, my entire existence as Talia's mother. And I was going to find out who. A friend referred me to a handwriting analyst named Dr. Felix Crane. He worked out of a small office downtown, surrounded by magnifying glasses and file cabinets. I handed him the forged letter, and he studied it under a bright lamp for several minutes. Finally, he looked up at me. This is a forgery, he said matter-of-factly. I already know that, I said. I need you to tell me who did it. Dr. Crane adjusted his glasses and pointed to the signature. The person who forged this is someone who signs documents often. See how confident the strokes are? This isn't someone who was nervous or hesitant. They've practiced signing things. So, Corvin, I asked. Possibly, Dr. Crane said. But I'd need a sample of his handwriting to confirm. I thanked him and left his office. As I walked to my car, I saw someone standing by my driver's side door. Talia. My heart stopped. She looked at me with red, puffy eyes, like she had been crying. Mom, she said, her voice breaking. We need to talk. I nodded, unlocking the car. We both got in, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. Then Talia spoke. You ruined my graduation, she said quietly. I felt like I had been punched in the chest. I didn't respond right away. I just reached into my bag and pulled out the letter she had written me 4 months ago. I handed it to her. Talia stared at it, her face going pale. Where did you get this? She whispered. From a teacher, I said. I never received it. Corvin kept it from me. Talia's hands shook as she held the letter. But he told me you threw it away. He said you didn't care anymore. Tears welled up in my eyes. I never stopped caring, Talia. I never stopped trying to reach you. She looked at me, her face twisted in confusion and pain. Then why didn't you answer his messages? He said he sent you everything about the graduation. I never got any messages, I said. He lied to you. Talia's breath hitched. She stared at the letter in her hands, then at me, then back at the letter. Her lips trembled. Mom, she whispered. What else didn't he tell me? That question hung in the air between us, heavy and full of possibility. And I knew in that moment that everything was about to change. Talia and I drove to Corvin's house together. She lived there now, had been living there since the divorce. I hadn't been inside in over 2 years. When we arrived, Corvin was at work. Talia had a key. We went straight to the backyard, where Corvin kept a fire pit. Talia had remembered something. He burned things here sometimes, she said, kneeling by the pit. Papers, envelopes. I always thought it was junk mail. I knelt beside her, and together we sifted through the ash and debris. Most of it was too burned to read. But then Talia gasped. She pulled out a half-burned envelope. My name was on it. We kept searching. One by one, we found more. Letters, cards, notices from the school. All addressed to me. All burned. Talia's face crumbled as she realized what she was looking at. He burned your mail, she whispered. All of it. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Then I saw something else. A piece of paper only partially burned, with a letterhead at the top, Briarford Medical Center. I pulled it out carefully. It was a medical bill. For an injury Talia had sustained 2 years ago when she fell off her bike. The bill was in my name, but I had never seen it, and I had never authorized treatment. I called my insurance provider the next morning. The woman on the phone sounded confused when I explained the situation. Mrs. Armitage, she said slowly, you have several claims filed under your name for your daughter's medical care over the past 3 years. I never filed those claims, I said. There was a pause. According to our records, you did. And some of them were flagged for potential fraud. My stomach dropped. What? We opened an investigation 6 months ago, she explained. Someone has been using your identity to file claims. We believed it was you because all the paperwork had your signature. I felt like I was going to throw up. It wasn't me, I said. I need proof that I never agreed to any of this. The agent sighed. Then you'll need to provide documentation showing you were not involved. Otherwise, the fraud investigation will proceed with you as the suspect. I hung up and sat in silence. Corvin had been using my identity. He had been filing insurance claims, signing documents, controlling my entire life without me even knowing. And now I was the one under investigation. I needed proof. Hard, undeniable proof. And I knew exactly where to find it. Miss Vale called me that afternoon. I have something for you, she said quietly. But you need to come to the school after hours. I can't risk anyone seeing this. I met her in the parking lot at 7 p.m. She handed me a small USB drive. What is this? I asked. Internal school memos, she said. Communications between Corvin and the administration. I wasn't supposed to see them, but I made copies. I stared at the USB drive like it was a bomb. Why are you helping me? I asked. Miss Vale looked at me with sadness in her eyes. Because I've seen too many mothers erased. And I won't be part of it anymore. I went home and plugged the USB drive into my laptop. The files loaded slowly, one by one. Emails, memos, meeting notes. And then I saw it. A message from Corvin to Mr. Renford, dated 2 years ago. Celine needs to be removed from Talia's life for her own good. She's unstable and unreliable. I'll handle everything from now on. My hand shook as I scrolled further. Another memo, dated 6 months later, mentioned the incident. What incident? I clicked on the file. It was a report claiming I had endangered Talia during a visit. The date listed was March 14th, 2021. My heart stopped. That was the day I was in the hospital. I had been in a car accident and was unconscious for 3 days. There was no way I could have endangered Talia. Someone had lied. Someone had fabricated an entire incident to justify keeping me away from my daughter. I was still staring at the screen when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. Hello, I said. The voice on the other end was male, quiet, almost a whisper. I know what he did. I froze. Who is this? Meet me tonight, the voice said. Parkside Diner, 9 p.m. Come alone. The line went dead. I sat there for a long moment, my mind racing. This could be a trap. It could be Corvin trying to manipulate me again. But it could also be someone who knew the truth. I looked at the clock. It was 7:30 p.m. I had an hour and a half to decide. I grabbed my keys and drove to the diner. When I arrived, I scanned the parking lot. Only a few cars. I walked inside, my heart pounding. A man in his late 20s sat in a corner booth, his hood pulled up. When he saw me, he waved me over. I sat down across from him. He pulled down his hood, and I recognized him immediately. Rowan, Talia's childhood babysitter. Rowan looked older, tired. His hands shook as he clasped them together on the table. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. Why did you call me? I asked. He took a deep breath. Because I owe you the truth. And because I can't live with what I did anymore. What did you do? Rowan looked me in the eyes. Corvin paid me. 3 years ago. He paid me to say you were unstable. To say I witnessed you yelling at Talia, neglecting her, putting her in danger. None of it was true. But I needed the money and I was young and stupid. So I said it. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. You lied about me? Rowan nodded, his face full of shame. I'm sorry. I didn't know what he was planning. I thought it was just for a custody thing. But then I found out he was using it to take over everything. Your parental rights. Your communication with the school. Your entire relationship with Talia. I clenched my fists. Why are you telling me this now? Rowan leaned forward. Because it's not just about you. Corvin didn't want to replace you. He needed Talia for something. I frowned. What do you mean? Rowan's eyes darkened. Ask Talia about the inheritance. I called Talia as soon as I left the diner. We need to talk, I said. Now. She met me at a park near her school. We sat on a bench under the streetlights, and I told her everything Rowan had said. When I finished, Talia was silent for a long time. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Grandma left me a trust fund. I blinked. What? When she died 2 years ago, Talia said. She left me money. A lot of money. It becomes accessible when I turn 18. My mind raced. Why didn't you tell me? Because Corvin said it was private. He said you didn't need to know. Talia looked at me, her eyes filling with tears. Mom, he's been asking me to sign things. Documents. He said they were for my scholarship, for college applications. But now I'm not sure. My stomach twisted. Do you still have those documents? Talia nodded. On my laptop. We drove back to Corvin's house. Talia pulled up the files and showed me. My blood ran cold. The documents weren't for scholarships. They were financial authorization forms granting Corvin partial control over Talia's trust fund. Did the scholarship office ask you to sign these? I asked. Talia shook her head slowly. No, Corvin gave them to me. I felt rage building inside me. He wasn't just trying to erase me. He was trying to steal from my daughter. The next morning, I received a call from the police. Mrs. Armitage, the officer, said, "We need you to come down to the station. Corvin Hale has filed a report claiming you harassed and attacked him at your daughter's graduation." I sat down, my legs suddenly weak. That's not true. We still need to ask you some questions. I went to the station with Talia. She insisted on coming. When we arrived, the officer led us into an interrogation room. But before he could start asking questions, Talia pulled out her phone. I have proof, she said. She showed him the forged documents, the emails, the memos from the school. She explained everything, her voice shaking but determined. The officer listened carefully. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "This changes things," he said. He looked at me. "Mrs. Armitage, we're going to need to investigate Mr. Hale as well." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "Thank you," I whispered. But as we left the station, I knew this wasn't over. Corvin wasn't the type to go down quietly. And I was right. That evening I saw it. A video posted online, shared hundreds of times already. It was footage from the graduation. Edited footage. It showed me bursting into the auditorium, shouting, looking wild and unstable. The caption read, "Crazy mother disrupts daughter's graduation." I watched in horror as the comments poured in, calling me selfish, unhinged, a terrible parent. Talia saw the video too. She called me crying, "Mom, everyone's sharing it. They're saying horrible things about you." I took a deep breath. "It's edited, Talia. It's not the full story." "I know," she said. "But how do we prove it?" I thought for a moment. Then I remembered. Briarford Academy had security cameras. "I need to get the original footage," I said. I contacted a tech specialist named Omar who I had worked with years ago. He agreed to help. Omar analyzed the video Corvin posted online. Within an hour, he called me back. "This has been spliced," he said. "Clumsily, too. Whoever edited this wasn't very skilled. I can see the cut marks." "Can you find the original?" I asked. "If the school has it, yes." I called Ms. Vale. She managed to get me the original security footage from the graduation. Omar went to work. 2 hours later, he sent me a file. "You need to see this," he wrote. I opened the file. It was the unedited footage. It showed me walking in calmly, quietly. It showed Corvin shouting, pointing, causing the scene. But there was something else. Omar had enhanced the audio, and buried in the background, almost inaudible, was a conversation between Corvin and Mr. Renford. "Just keep her out," Corvin's voice said. "Once Talia turns 18, we're done with the mother." I played the audio over and over, my hands shaking. This was it. This was the proof I needed. But there was more. In the background of the recording, I heard another voice. Faint, but unmistakable. Talia's voice. I called Omar back. "Can you isolate that voice?" I asked. He worked his magic. An hour later, he sent me the enhanced clip. Talia's voice was clearer now. "Why are you doing this to her?" she had asked. And Corvin's response, cold and calculating, "Because she's useful only on paper." I sat in silence, tears streaming down my face. My daughter had heard him say that. She had known on some level what he was doing, but she had been too young, too confused, too manipulated to understand. I sent the audio file to Talia. She called me immediately, sobbing. I remember now, she said. I heard him say that. Years ago. I didn't understand what it meant, but I remember. He used you, I said gently. He manipulated both of us. Talia's voice hardened. Mom, she said, I want to expose him. I smiled through my tears. Then let's do it. We organized a meeting with the school board. Miss Vale helped us arrange it. Rowan agreed to testify. Dr. Crane provided his analysis of the forged signatures. Omar brought the audio evidence. And Talia stood beside me, ready to tell the truth. The meeting was held in the same auditorium where Talia graduated. The irony wasn't lost on me. The board members sat at a long table on the stage. Parents, teachers, and students filled the seats. And Corvin sat in the front row, his lawyer beside him. He looked confident, smug, like he had already won. The board president called the meeting to order. Ms. Vale presented the memos first. Then Rowan spoke, his voice shaking as he admitted what he had done. Dr. Crane explained the forgeries. Omar played the audio. The room was silent. Every eye was on Corvin. His face had gone pale. His lawyer leaned over to whisper something to him, but Corvin just sat there, frozen. Then Talia stood up. She walked to the microphone at the front of the room. I was manipulated, she said, her voice clear and strong. For years, by someone I trusted. Someone who made me believe my mother didn't love me. But she never stopped fighting for me. And I will never stop fighting for her. The room erupted in applause. The board president banged his gavel. Mr. Hale, he said, the board will be taking immediate legal action. You are banned from this institution, and we will be forwarding all evidence to the authorities. Corvin's lawyer stood up and walked out. Corvin sat alone, his empire crumbling around him. After the meeting, Talia and I stood outside the auditorium. The night air was cool, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Talia looked at me, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, Mom, she said, for everything. I pulled her into a hug. You have nothing to apologize for. We stood there for a long time, holding each other. Then Talia pulled back and wiped her eyes. There's one more thing, she said. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. I found this in Corvin's desk. It has your name on it. I took the envelope, my hands trembling. I opened it carefully. Inside was a legal document. My original custody rights. The ones I had filed years ago, right after the divorce. The ones that were supposed to go to the family court judge. But they had never been filed. Corvin had intercepted them. He had stolen them, hidden them, made sure the judge never saw them. That was how he had taken control. That was how he had erased me. I looked at Talia, my vision blurring with tears. This is it, I whispered. This is the proof I need. Talia nodded. We're going to fix this, Mom. Together. I took the custody documents to my lawyer the next morning. She reviewed them carefully, her eyes widening. This changes everything, she said. If the judge never received these, then the custody arrangement was never legally valid. What does that mean? I asked. It means you never lost your rights, she said. Corvin has been operating under false pretenses this entire time. Within a week, we were back in court. Corvin showed up with a new lawyer, but he looked defeated. The judge reviewed all the evidence, the forged signatures, the intercepted mail, the audio recordings, the stolen custody documents. When she finished, she looked at Corvin with disgust. Mr. Hale, she said, you have committed fraud, forgery, identity theft, and parental interference. I am referring this case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. She turned to me. Mrs. Armitage, I am restoring your full parental rights, effective immediately. I am also issuing a restraining order against Mr. Hale. He is not to contact you or your daughter. Corvin stood up, his face red. This is ridiculous. I did everything for that girl. The judge banged her gavel. Mr. Hale, you are in contempt. Bailiff, remove him. As Corvin was escorted out of the courtroom, he looked at me one last time. There was no smugness left, just anger, bitterness, and defeat. 2 weeks later, Briarford Academy held a special assembly. They invited me. When I walked into the auditorium, this time through the front doors, the entire room stood and applauded. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I held my head high. Talia was waiting for me on the stage. She walked to the microphone and addressed the crowd. "I want everyone to know," she said, her voice strong, "that my mother never abandoned me. She was kept away from me through lies and manipulation, but she never stopped fighting, and I will never forget that." She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, you walked in for me when I needed you most, even when I didn't realize it. And now I'm walking back to you." She stepped off the stage and ran to me. We hugged in front of everyone, and the auditorium erupted in applause. The school principal approached us afterward. "Mrs. Armitage," he said, "on behalf of Briarford Academy, I apologize. We failed you and your daughter. We will be implementing new policies to ensure this never happens again." I nodded, accepting his apology. But the real victory wasn't the apology. It was the girl standing beside me, holding my hand. My daughter. Finally home. Talia moved back in with me the following month. We spent the first week just talking, catching up on all the years we had lost. She told me about school, her friends, her dreams for college. I told her about the nights I cried myself to sleep, the phone calls that went unanswered, the letters I wrote that never reached her. We cried together. We laughed together. We healed together. Corvin was charged with multiple crimes: fraud, forgery, identity theft, and custodial interference. His trial was set for the following year. I didn't care what happened to him anymore. He had no power over me now. One evening, Talia and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Mom," she said quietly, "do you ever regret walking into that auditorium? Even though everyone was staring, even though it was so hard." I thought about it for a moment. Then I smiled. "Not for a second," I said, "because that's what mothers do. We show up, even when we're not wanted, even when we're scared. We show up." Talia squeezed my hand. "I'm glad you did." I looked at my daughter, my beautiful, strong daughter, and felt a peace I hadn't felt in years. The fight was over. The lies were exposed. And we had won, not through revenge, but through truth. And that was the greatest victory of all.